Good evening. I hereby call to order the January 5th, 2015 meeting of Mayfield Heights City Council to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeJohn?
Here.
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Mercurio?
Here.
Mr. Monaco?
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Here.
Mr. Sharia?
Here.
Mrs. Teresi?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. As this is a special council meeting, we will forego all reports of officers and reports from committees, commissions, and boards, and we will move right to our resolution of 2015-1. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-1, a resolution authorizing the mayor to issue a purchase order to Nick Mayers Marshall Ford for the purchase of 3 vehicles for the police department. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Discussion. Mr. Tribby sent us a memo illustrating the pricing from Marshall Ford versus Lebanon Ford, as well as information from Chief Bittner and copies of our proposal. Mr. Tribby, would you like to add anything to that?
Only that we use the state terms contract as a base for obtaining a quote from any dealer, and Marshall Ford was willing to match the base price plus delivery of the state terms contract with Lebanon Ford. There were several options the police department wanted on the vehicles, and Marshall Ford quoted a lower price than what was on the Lebanon Ford list of options by about $119 per vehicle. So Marshall Ford is $119 below Lebanon Ford, which was the state terms contractor.
Are there any questions for Mr. Tribby? Bob, I have a question, and just to refresh my memory, did we approve 3 additional vehicles in 2014?
Well, 2014, we did buy 3 Ford Tauruses from Marshall Ford. I put in the temporary appropriation an estimated $80,000 to cover 3 vehicles in 2015. We would have discussed this in the regular budget, but of course this came up, shall we say, sooner than we thought. But there are funds appropriated in the temporary appropriation to cover this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeJohn.
And Mr. Tribby, the reason for the doing this now is because they're no longer taking orders after the 8th of this month, is it?
Correct. I was advised by the police chief shortly after our last meeting that they had heard that Ford Motor was no longer accepting orders for this particular vehicle after January the 9th. If it would have been a week later, we could have done this at the regular meeting next week, but we don't have any choice, and if we don't get the order in, we'll be waiting quite a long time. I'm being facetious, obviously, when we missed the cut for this year.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mayor?
And this is in the chief's plans to replace 3 vehicles a year. That's his turnover plan. So none of the vehicles get too outdated or too, at least they're worth something when we turn them in. If we go a little bit farther, then they tend to be too beat up to be even to have any trade-in value.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yeah, I think the chief told me he doesn't like to see him go past 75,000 miles.
Anything else? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Resolution 2014-1 has been approved. Is there a motion
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to, to move next Monday's regularly scheduled council meeting from 7:30. I'd like to bump that time up to 7 o'clock.
Do I have a second?
Can I add something here?
Of course, Mr. Sharia.
It may start at 7, but it cannot go past 8.
8:15 maybe?
Would you, how about 6:30?
6:30 is okay with me, but it still does not go past 8 o'clock. Mr. Monaco?
6:30, I might not be able to make it, but
We can get by.
I'm sure.
We can
seven-
get by. We can get by.
7 o'clock's fine.
Shall we leave it, Mr. Tribby?
After you're done. I was gonna say, I'll, speak with Lisa to make sure we keep the agenda as, short as possible,
Okay, good.
with non-controversial issues, if possible. And if,
No, we didn't get a second, no. Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Mercurio to change our regularly scheduled January 12th council meeting from 7:30 to 7 PM. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Sharia. Roll call on the motion.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes?
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Dijon?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Our motion has been approved.
Thank
Meeting
you.
will be at 7 PM.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to discuss? Mr. Monaco?
I just have this idea, and I like to share with my colleagues here. I spent some of the holidays with some friends of mine, and a couple of them are veterans. And I was just thinking, what can we do as a city to honor the veterans that have fought for us, and they have suffered a lot for us. And what I came up with is that I think it would be a good gesture on the part of our city to have a parking space dedicated to the veterans. I know that we have parking spaces for handicapped people, but I think it would be, again, a good gesture from the city to have a parking space reserved for them at City Hall, at the parks, in any city-owned properties.
Thank you, Mr. Monaco. Mayor, do you have to add anything? No? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Sharia, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. The motion has been adopted and we are adjourned.